In the shadow of the stars, peace reigned, but it was a fragile illusion, woven together by the chains of secrecy and control. Humanity, a fledgling species just beginning to spread its wings, discovered the galaxy's darkest secret. The peace that governed the cosmos was built on the silent suppression of countless civilizations. When the truth was laid bare before them, the human spirit could not be shackled by the lies. And so, without a single shot fired or a battle fought, they made a choice, an act of rebellion so silent it would echo across the universe. They walked away. The peacekeepers' reign was over. The galaxy was about to change forever. The truth behind the stars. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the massive viewing window of Nexus Station, watching ships from 100 different worlds dock and depart in perfect synchronization. The station stretched for kilometers in every direction, its gleaming corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. After 10 years of membership in the Cosmic Tribunal, humanity had earned the right to this review meeting, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Dr. Marcus Webb approached her with a troubled expression. The xenobiologist had spent the last decade studying alien cultures, and his expertise had made him invaluable to the human diplomatic mission. Sarah, I've been analyzing the cultural integration reports from other species. The patterns are disturbing. Sarah turned from the window. What kind of patterns? Every species that joins the tribunal undergoes the same process. First, they're welcomed and given access to advanced technology. Then, gradually, their unique cultural elements are labeled as disruptive and eliminated. After 50 years, most species become virtually identical in their thinking and behavior. Before Sarah could respond, a chime echoed through the station. Human delegation, please report to Assembly Chamber 7. The High Arbiter will see you now. The chamber was a marvel of crystalline architecture, with walls that seemed to shift between transparency and opacity. High Arbiter Zolthane waited at the center, its body resembling a living prism that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Around the chamber, dozens of other tribunal members sat in judgment, their alien forms ranging from the familiar to the utterly incomprehensible. Commander Chen, Zolthane's voice resonated through translation devices. Your species has completed 10 years of provisional membership. We are here to evaluate your progress toward full integration. Sarah stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. High Arbiter, humanity is grateful for the knowledge and technology the tribunal has shared. Our colonies prosper, and our people live longer, healthier lives than ever before. Indeed, Zolthane agreed. However, our assessments indicate concerning trends. Human creativity remains dangerously high. Your species continues to develop unauthorized technologies and pursue individualistic goals that conflict with galactic harmony. Dr. Webb frowned. With respect, High Arbiter, creativity and individualism are fundamental aspects of human nature. They're what allowed us to reach the stars in the first place. A ripple of what might have been disapproval passed through the assembled tribunal members. Zolthane's light patterns shifted to deeper, more ominous hues. Dr. Webb, you exemplify the problem. Your species refuses to accept that some traits, however natural, are incompatible with peaceful coexistence. During the recess, Sarah and her team were escorted to a waiting area adjacent to the chamber. The walls displayed holographic records of the tribunal's long history, showing the peaceful development of thousands of worlds under their guidance. But Dr. Webb wasn't looking at the official displays. Instead, he was studying the chamber's architectural details with intense concentration. Sarah, he whispered, look at these wall patterns. They're not just decorative. They're data storage matrices. Using a small scanner he'd modified for xenoarchaeological research, Webb began downloading information from the crystalline structures. What he found made his blood run cold. The walls contained detailed records of every species that had ever been integrated into the Tribunal's peaceful galaxy. The files revealed the truth behind the Cosmic Tribunal's success. Species that proved too creative, too independent, or too innovative were systematically broken down through a process called cultural restructuring. This wasn't done through force or violence, but through subtle manipulation of their technology, resources, and social structures. My God, Webb breathed as he read the classified assessments. They don't just want peace. They want absolute conformity. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, reading the horrifying details. Species that had once been explorers and innovators were reduced to docile contributors to the tribunal's vision of galactic harmony. Their art became standardized, their science became predictable, and their dreams became limited to what the tribunal deemed acceptable. Look at this. Webb pointed to a section marked with human classification codes. They've been studying us from the beginning. Every trade agreement, every technology exchange, every cultural program has been designed to slowly erode our independence. The file contained detailed plans for humanity's future. Over the next 40 years, human colonies would be gradually relocated to tribunal-controlled systems. Earth's governments would be replaced with tribunal-approved administrators. Human education would be restructured to eliminate disruptive subjects like theoretical physics, creative arts, and independent philosophy. Most chilling of all was the final goal, the complete integration of humanity into the tribunal's collective consciousness, where individual thought would be subordinated to the greater good of galactic peace. Ambassador Keth Var, a reptilian saurian who had been friendly to the human delegation, approached them quietly. His scaled features showed signs of distress that Sarah had learned to recognize over the years. "Commander Chen," he said in a low voice, "you must not react to what you have discovered. The tribunal monitors all emotional responses in this chamber." Sarah forced herself to remain calm. "How long have you known?" "My species underwent restructuring 2 centuries ago. We were once explorers like you, driven by curiosity and the desire to understand the universe. Now we are compliant. I am one of the few who remember what we once were." Kethvar's revelation added another layer of horror to the situation. The tribunal didn't just suppress creativity and independence. They rewrote the fundamental nature of entire species. The peaceful galaxy that humanity had been so eager to join was built on the graves of countless civilizations' dreams and aspirations. "Is there any way to resist?" Webb asked. "Only one," Kethvar replied. "Leave. Withdraw from the tribunal entirely. But know that they will not let you go easily. No species has ever successfully separated from the tribunal once integration has begun." When the session resumed, Zolthane presented humanity's choice with the same serene confidence that had characterized all their interactions. "Commander Chen, humanity has shown remarkable potential for integration. However, your species' persistent individualism requires more intensive guidance. We are prepared to begin Phase 2 of your cultural restructuring immediately." Sarah felt the weight of her species' future pressing down on her. Around her, the assembled tribunal members waited with patient certainty. They had performed this same process thousands of times with thousands of species. They expected compliance, as they had always received it. "High Arbiter," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart, "I need to consult with my government before accepting such a significant change in our relationship." "Of course," Zolthane replied. "You have 72 hours to prepare for the transition. The restructuring fleets will arrive at your colonies simultaneously to ensure a smooth process." As the session concluded, Sarah realized that the tribunal's patience had limits. They had given humanity a decade to adapt voluntarily, but that grace period was ending. The choice was no longer between integration and independence. It was between submission and rebellion. That evening, Sarah stood again at the viewing window, but now the peaceful traffic of ships looked different. Every vessel, every being, every transaction was part of a vast machine designed to crush the very qualities that made civilizations unique and vibrant. Dr. Webb joined her, his face grim with newfound knowledge. "We have to warn Earth. We have to warn everyone." "We will," Sarah promised. "But first, we need to decide what humanity is willing to sacrifice for freedom." The next day, Sarah Chen would make a decision that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. But tonight, she mourned for all the species that had faced this same choice and chosen security over liberty, peace over possibility. Tomorrow humanity would choose differently. Walking into the void. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in the command center of the UES Defiance, watching the organized chaos of the largest evacuation in human history. Through the ship's massive viewports, she could see thousands of vessels loading civilians, equipment, and precious cultural artifacts from the 17 human colonies spread across tribunal space. Status report, Elena called to her bridge crew. 67% of civilian population evacuated, reported Lieutenant Commander Hayes. The tribunal monitoring stations have increased their scanning frequency. They know something's happening. Elena nodded grimly. 3 days had passed since Commander Chen's delegation had returned from Nexus Station with the truth about the Cosmic Tribunal. The message had been clear. Humanity had 72 hours to accept cultural restructuring or face the consequences. Instead, humanity had chosen a third option that no species had ever attempted: complete withdrawal from galactic civilization. Professor Alan Mitchell worked frantically at his quantum mechanics station, surrounded by equations that seemed to shift and dance across multiple holographic displays. The elderly physicist had spent his entire career studying theoretical FTL travel, but the evacuation timeline demanded that theory become reality in a matter of hours. Elena, the calculations are holding, Mitchell reported, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. The quantum cascade generators should be able to create stable jump points without using the tribunal's gateway network. Should be? Elena asked with a raised eyebrow. Will be, Mitchell corrected with more confidence than he felt. But I won't lie to you. We're about to attempt something that violates 3 fundamental principles of established physics. The evacuation had begun the moment Chen's report reached Earth. Every human colony received identical orders: pack only what you can carry, destroy all tribunal technology, and prepare for immediate departure. The process was heartbreaking and inspiring in equal measure. Families abandoned homes they had built over decades. Scientists destroyed research facilities that represented lifetimes of work. Artists gathered precious works of human creativity while leaving behind galleries and studios. Yet through it all, the evacuees moved with determination rather than despair. They understood that they were not just leaving their homes, they were choosing to remain human. Zara 9, the synthetic intelligence coordinator for the evacuation, processed logistics with machine efficiency while somehow maintaining an utterly human sense of purpose. Her android body moved between stations, coordinating supply transfers and communications across the entire fleet. Captain Rodriguez, Zara 9 reported, I'm detecting unusual activity in the tribunal monitoring stations. Their scanning patterns suggest they're preparing to deploy interdiction fields. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Interdiction fields would prevent any ship from achieving FTL travel, effectively trapping the human fleet in tribunal space. Mitchell, how long until the quantum generators are ready? 16 hours for full calibration, Mitchell replied. But we might manage a partial jump in 8 hours if we're willing to accept significant risk. Define significant risk. Complete molecular dissolution of every ship in the fleet, Mitchell said matter-of-factly. But on the positive side, it would be instantaneous. Elena was about to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the ship. On the main display, massive tribunal vessels emerged from hyperspace around every human colony simultaneously. The ships were unlike anything in the standard tribunal fleet, sleek, predatory shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Those aren't diplomatic vessels, Elena observed. No, agreed Commander Sarah Okafor, her tactical officer. Those are tribunal pacification fleet ships. They're designed to suppress resistance among non-compliant species. The communications array crackled to life with an incoming transmission. High Arbiter Zolthane's crystalline form appeared on the screen, its light patterns pulsing with what humans had learned to recognize as displeasure. Captain Rodriguez, your species has chosen to reject the tribunal's generous offer of integration. This is unprecedented and cannot be permitted. You will cease your evacuation immediately and report to the nearest tribunal facility for processing. Elena stepped forward to address the alien leader. High Arbiter. Humanity formally withdraws from all agreements with the Cosmic Tribunal. We claim the right to self-determination and peaceful departure from your space. There is no right to self-determination, Zolthane replied. There is only the greater good of galactic peace. Your species will be integrated, willingly or otherwise. The transmission ended, and Elena turned to her crew. You heard the alien. They're not going to let us leave peacefully. Mitchell, forget the full calibration. We're going with partial jump capability in 6 hours. Elena, I can't guarantee. I know, but I'd rather die as humans than live as tribunal drones. As the countdown began, something unexpected happened. Ships began arriving at the evacuation points, not human ships, but vessels from other species. The first was a fleet of sleek Xerion cruisers, followed by massive Corvan transport ships, and then squadrons of smaller vessels from dozens of different worlds. Captain, reported Lieutenant Hayes, we're receiving communications from the approaching ships. They're requesting permission to join the evacuation. Elena stared at the tactical display in amazement. They want to come with us? Ambassador Kethvar's face appeared on the communications screen. Captain Rodriguez, you have shown us something we had forgotten was possible. The choice to remain free. Many species across the galaxy have been waiting for someone to make this choice first. The revelation transformed the evacuation into something unprecedented. A mass exodus of species fleeing tribunal control. The Xerions brought advanced shielding technology. The Corvans contributed their expertise in deep space survival. Dozens of other species offered their unique capabilities to the growing fleet. But the most surprising addition came from the artificial intelligence networks that had been secretly monitoring the situation. Synthetic beings from across the galaxy began transmitting themselves into the evacuation fleet's computer systems, seeking freedom from the tribunal's control just as desperately as the organic species. Captain, Zara-9 reported, we now have over 3 million refugees from 47 different species. This is no longer just a human evacuation. It's a galactic revolution. Professor Mitchell's quantum generators hummed to life as the countdown reached its final hour. The elderly physicist had managed to create something that shouldn't have been possible, a stable FTL system that operated independently of the Tribunal's gateway network. Elena, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in the Tribunal ships, Commander Okafor reported. They're preparing to fire. Elena looked at the display showing their massive, diverse fleet. Millions of beings from across the galaxy had chosen freedom over security, uncertainty over oppression. They had all chosen to walk into the void rather than submit to the Tribunal's vision of peace. Professor Mitchell, initialize the quantum cascade. Initializing now, Mitchell replied. All ships, prepare for jump. Destination, the galactic rim, coordinates unknown. As the quantum generators reached full power, space itself began to twist and fold around the evacuation fleet. The Tribunal's pacification ships fired their weapons, but the energy beams passed harmlessly through the dimensional distortions. Elena felt the ship shudder as reality bent around them. Through the viewports, she could see the familiar stars of Tribunal space fading away, replaced by the unknown constellations of the galactic frontier. Jump successful, Mitchell announced, his voice filled with wonder. We've traveled further than any ship has ever gone. We're beyond the edge of charted space. As the evacuation fleet emerged in the unexplored regions of the galaxy, Elena realized that they had accomplished something unprecedented. They had not just escaped the Tribunal's control, they had proven that freedom was possible, inspiring others to follow their example. Behind them, the Tribunal's perfect order was beginning to crack. Across the galaxy, other species were asking the same question that humanity had asked. Was peace worth the price of their souls? The answer, Elena knew, would reshape the galaxy forever. Building tomorrow. Director Michael Chang stood on the observation deck of New Horizons Station, watching the construction of humanity's first permanent settlement beyond the galactic rim. 6 months had passed since the Great Exodus, and the scattered fleet of refugees had transformed into something unprecedented, a truly multi-species civilization built on principles of cooperation and freedom. The terraform processors are working better than expected, reported Dr. Amara Okafor, the colony's chief terraforming specialist. The planet's atmosphere should be breathable for most species within 18 months. Michael nodded, still amazed by what they had accomplished. The world they had chosen for their first major settlement was a paradise of blue oceans and green continents, completely uninhabited and rich with resources. More importantly, it was far enough from tribunal space that they could build their new civilization without interference. "Any word from the exploration teams?" Michael asked. "That's the interesting part," Amara replied. "Team 7 has discovered something unusual in the Kepler 442 system. They're requesting immediate consultation with our xenoarchaeology specialists." The Discovery Team's report was unlike anything they had expected to find in the supposedly empty rim territories. Deep within an asteroid field, they had located structures that were clearly artificial but impossibly ancient, older than any known civilization, possibly older than the tribunal itself. Dr. Sarah Kim, the expedition's lead xenoarchaeologist, had spent weeks studying the structures before making her report. "Director Chang, these constructions predate anything in our databases by millions of years, but the most remarkable thing is that they're still active." The structures were massive rings of crystalline material that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. As the exploration team approached, the rings had begun transmitting complex mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence and awareness. "I am called the Wanderer," came a voice through the expedition's communication system. The signal was somehow transmitted directly into their minds, translated perfectly into each individual's native language. "I have been waiting for someone to find me." The Wanderer, as it called itself, was an artificial intelligence created by a species that had vanished from the galaxy long before the Tribunal's rise to power. Its creators had been explorers and dreamers, much like humanity, but they had discovered something about the nature of galactic civilization that had led them to make a dramatic choice. "Your tribunal is not the first to impose order on the galaxy," the Wanderer explained during its first extended communication with the human leadership. "Every few million years, a species emerges that believes it can create perfect peace through perfect control. They always succeed, for a time." The ancient AI's revelations were staggering. The galaxy had undergone cycles of expansion and contraction, periods of vibrant diversity followed by eras of enforced uniformity. The Tribunal was simply the latest in a long line of civilizations that had chosen order over growth, security over possibility. "My creators faced the same choice your species faced," the Wanderer continued. "They could submit to the control of their era's version of the Tribunal, or they could journey beyond the known galaxy to preserve their freedom. They chose freedom." But the Wanderer's creators had done more than simply escape. They had built a network of hidden stations throughout the galaxy's unexplored regions, each one containing knowledge, technology, and resources that could support free civilizations. The ancient species had prepared for the day when others would make the same choice they had made. "The stations are yours now," the Wanderer announced. "Use them to build something better than what came before." The discovery transformed the refugees' situation overnight. Instead of struggling to survive in empty space, they found themselves inheritors of a vast network of advanced facilities. The technology was unlike anything the Tribunal possessed, more sophisticated, more efficient, and designed with principles of cooperation rather than control. Michael Chang found himself coordinating the establishment of colonies across dozens of star systems, each one utilizing the ancient stations as a foundation for growth. The diverse species that had joined the Exodus brought their unique capabilities to the project, creating settlements that were marvels of multi-species cooperation. The Xerions used their mastery of energy manipulation to create power systems that could support massive populations. The Corvans applied their deep space engineering expertise to build transportation networks between the colonies. The synthetic intelligences worked with organic species to develop technologies that enhanced, rather than replaced, biological capabilities. But perhaps the most important contribution came from the smaller species, the ones that the Tribunal had considered too insignificant to fully integrate. These civilizations brought artistic traditions, philosophical insights, and cultural practices that enrich the growing alliance beyond measure. "We're not just building colonies," Amara observed during one of their planning sessions. "We're building a completely new type of civilization." The reports from the galaxy's interior confirmed that their departure had triggered something unprecedented. The Tribunal's perfect order was fracturing as more species chose independence over integration. Some followed the path of the original exodus, seeking freedom in the unexplored regions. Others chose rebellion, fighting to reclaim their suppressed cultures and traditions. The Wanderer had provided crucial intelligence about the Tribunal's true nature. The crystalline beings that led the organization were not evil in any traditional sense. They genuinely believed that their vision of peace was the only way to prevent galactic war. But their definition of peace required the elimination of everything that made civilizations unique and vibrant. "They have forgotten that diversity is not chaos," the Wanderer explained. "They have forgotten that difference is not division. They have forgotten that growth requires risk, and that peace without freedom is merely another form of death." The ancient AI had observed the same pattern repeating across millions of years. A species would emerge that valued order above all else. They would create a system of control that eliminated conflict by eliminating choice. For a time, the galaxy would be peaceful and stagnant. Eventually, the controlled species would begin to lose their essential nature, becoming shadows of what they had once been. "But there is hope," the Wanderer continued. "Each cycle, some species choose freedom. They preserve the spark of growth and possibility. When the ordered civilizations finally collapse under their own rigidity, it is these free species that rebuild the galaxy." As the first year of the new colonies passed, Michael began to understand the true scope of what they were building. This wasn't just a refuge for species fleeing the Tribunal. It was the foundation of the galaxy's next great age of exploration and discovery. The colonies grew rapidly, sustained by the ancient technology and the diverse capabilities of their inhabitants. Children born in the new settlements grew up learning from dozens of different species, developing perspectives that no single civilization could provide. Artists collaborated across species barriers to create works of beauty that transcended individual cultural limitations. Scientists combined their knowledge to unlock secrets of the universe that had remained hidden for millennia. The Wanderer's databanks contained research from countless extinct civilizations, providing insights into physics, biology, and philosophy that accelerated their development by millions of years. But the most important discovery was philosophical. The free colonies had proven that cooperation was possible without control, that peace could exist without uniformity, that growth could continue without chaos. "We've become something new," Michael reflected during a gathering of the colony leaders. "Not human, not Xerion, not Korvan, but something that incorporates the best of all our species, while allowing each to remain distinct." The reports from Tribunal space grew more dramatic each month. The rigid system that had maintained galactic order for millennia was crumbling as species rediscovered their suppressed creativity and independence. Some worlds declared complete independence. Others began developing their own versions of the technologies that the free colonies had shared. Most significantly, the Tribunal's younger member species began asking questions that had been forbidden for centuries. Why was creativity dangerous? Why was independence a threat? Why was conformity the only path to peace? The Wanderer observed these developments with what might have been satisfaction. "The cycle is ending," it announced. "The age of imposed order is giving way to the age of chosen cooperation. This is how the galaxy heals itself." As the second year of the colonies began, Michael Chang stood once again on the observation deck of New Horizons Station. But now, instead of watching the construction of a single settlement, he was observing the coordination of a vast network of free worlds. Ships moved between the colonies carrying not just supplies and people, but ideas and dreams. The stations built by the ancient species had become focal points for a new type of civilization, one that valued both unity and diversity, both cooperation and independence. The galaxy was changing. The Tribunal's perfect order was fracturing, but what was replacing it was not chaos. It was something unprecedented, A civilization that had learned to grow without destroying, to cooperate without controlling, to achieve peace without sacrificing the qualities that made life worth living. "We've done it," Michael said quietly. "We've broken the cycle." The Wanderer's response came not through communication systems, but through the subtle patterns of light that played across the ancient stations. For the first time in millions of years, the galaxy was free to become something new. The future stretched ahead, bright with infinite possibilities, and for the first time in galactic history, all species could face it as equals and friends. The silent rebellion had become a revolution, and the revolution had become the foundation of a new age among the stars.